Shop Talk, brought to you by TuckerSurvival.com. Hi there, and welcome to a brand new show brought to you by TuckerSurvival.com. And it's called Shop Talk, where sometimes we talk shop and sometimes we just talk. So today, down here in the old bunker, in the old workshop, I wanted to kind of talk about maintenance. Maybe a little bit different than what most people would think. You know, if you've got your gun, you want to keep it maintained, keep it clean, your survival gear, keep your lanterns working, all that kind of stuff. But sometimes what is often overlooked is mind, body, and spirit maintenance. Knowing how to think clearly and calmly in adverse situations, something you can think maybe you can do, but without properly training your mind, your body, your spirit to deal with these things, you can find yourself not performing quite as you thought you would be. And just like muscle memory, you can also do that with your mind, your body, and your spirit by training it to do certain things and to be thinking clearly when these situations arise. And in today's times, that's no more relevant than right now. I mean, we've been locked down now for 7 months, something like that. What was supposed to be 2 weeks, they said, 2 weeks, then we'll open back up. We saw rushes at the store, runs on toilet paper, water, canned goods, all kinds of things. Even a month, up to 2 months after we got locked down, I still saw lines of people at the big box stores buying food. You would think after that amount of time they would have everything they needed, but they were still out there buying it, which just shows you how unprepared many, many people really were. Even though you could live in earthquake country or tornado country, hurricane, but I do believe that people that live in hurricane and tornado-prone areas are probably a lot more prepared because it's something they deal with year after year. Hurricanes, not so much, or earthquakes, not so much. So here we are now in this massive lockdown of dystopian caliber, and 7 months. I mean, our year is almost over. And there's still people that I find when I talk to them that aren't really taking this thing very seriously. They're all waiting for things to get back to a sense of normal, even though we're being told this is the new normal. You could expect to be locked down for 2 or 3 years. So now when you start to look around, it's starting to look a little bit different. There's violence erupting across this country. Now there's wildfires in, most of the western states of the United States right now. Very unprecedented. So this might be a good time to start thinking about your own personal survival, the survival of your family, close friends. And if you haven't thought about these things, it's a great time to start now. And a lot of that is preparing your mind, which is something you should do anyway, because you never know what might happen. You could be out driving your car and come across an accident and, need to pull over in to help out. So being able to be prepared for those situations by keeping emergency kits in your car, flares, things like that. To think about what it might be like to go out and help in that type of a situation, not knowing what you might see. Blood, broken bones, maybe even death. So these are things we hope we never have to deal with, but it's better to be prepared for these things as best you can so that you can be of service in case you run across these situations. And now is no different. It is time to start to get ready. In fact, it's really kind of too late when you really think about it. That window's been closing for a long time. But I'm always the eternal optimist, but a realist. It's never too late to do something. So if you have not really prepared for anything, winter's coming. Now is a good time to start thinking about that. Otherwise, winter will be here and it will be too late. But you could be planting crops right now. There are certain winter things that you could be growing. Garlic, things of this nature, potatoes, things that, like to grow into the ground. If you have a greenhouse, that really opens up what you're able to grow. You can also do cold boxes. So there are ways to grow things indoors, outdoors, in cold boxes, greenhouses, things like that, so that you don't have to go to the store to get things. It's amazing how little you can actually live on if you had to, even just rice and beans. I just ordered some more things for my, my own pantry. Some beans, and order some more rice. So those are kind of basic things, but there's protein in them. You've got vitamins and minerals. So if that's all you had, you could actually do quite well with that. So things to think about. So you don't have to go out into the stores, especially as things are getting more violent. I mean, you've seen the videos, people fighting in the stores because you're not wearing a mask, you're all wearing a mask, you're fighting over food, the last bit of toilet paper. So desperate times create desperate people. So it's better to not even have to go into those scenarios. So by planning ahead, prepping your own stuff, thinking ahead what you might need. So if you're growing a garden, you've got some beans, you've got rice, you've got some water, you've got enough things to get you through this winter. Because I'm telling you right now, my prediction is this is going to be a brutal winter. Not only are we still locked down, and the way it's looking, we'll still be locked down. We've got violence erupting across America. A lot of communities don't even have stores anymore because the rioters burned them down. So now, they're without those stores that are not going to be rebuilt. Not everybody's able to grow big gardens. So you've got to learn, what can you grow in your maybe small apartment? What do you need? Tomatoes are pretty easy to grow. You can grow those indoors. So you kind of look at things that have different values to them. Types of food that you could dry, you could can, you could freeze. So these are things you want to look at. I've got some butternut squash, which is a gourd. It's good for 6 to 9 months, depending on how you store it. So I've got some of those growing in the garden. Some of them are getting close to actually be harvested, and I'll be putting those away. So this winter, I'll be able to get some of that out. Having chickens, that's become a very popular item. If you treat the eggs with mineral oil, which I'll be doing a video on that later on, you can get, again, 6 to 9 months out of those, depending on how you're storing them. And just to have a source of protein like that. So you couple the eggs with your beans, your rice, maybe some butternut squash you've put away, other things that you've canned, maybe frozen. So when you look at things that way, yeah, maybe you're not doing a gourmet meal every night, but you are getting by, not having to go out into dangerous situations. And the peace of mind. So that goes the whole mind, body, spirit thing. To be prepared, you don't have that anxiety. You're too busy to get depressed because you're out there preparing. So just knowing you're prepared does wonders for your psyche, your sense of hope that you've got things taken care of. And with that preparedness mindset, you're always looking at things differently. So maybe you got something in the mail and it's got some foam in it or some cool little bag it came in. Instead of, throwing it in the recycle, you might want to keep that. You kind of look at things differently. It's like, how could I use this? So you start a little stockpile of different things you might be able to use, different bags and things like that. So it gets your mind really thinking in a very different direction of how can I repurpose these items. Maybe these bags, I can use them for some of the produce that I'll be getting out of the garden in a month or so. So these are things you can start doing now as you look around just at what you have. Take stock of your pantry and see what you've got. Check the dates on them. A lot of times, you're digging in the back of the pantry and you might find stuff that's been in there 5 years. It's not good anymore. So it's good to rotate that stuff out, and you can start simple. If you go to the big box stores or some other stores and they've got sales on, like a little case of canned beans or whatever, then get that and just store that away and then put the date on it, what it's good till. So that at a glance, you can see, oh, okay, I've got a few more months before this is good. And when I'm out there, I'm looking for things that are good for at least a year, if not longer. So sometimes you've got to dig back in there a little bit and you'll find they've got maybe a case of beans or whatever that actually has a shelf life that's 6 or 7 months beyond the one you found up front. So it's good to dig around a little bit. And just things like that, you can start simple. Even if you're just now starting, it's better late than never. You'd be amazed how much you could do in just a month. So that's something to think about. Another thing is you're getting good sleep. You know, a lot of people, they don't get good sleep, which means your immune system gets compromised and your mental state gets compromised. So you have to really kind of delve in why you're not getting good sleep. Are you staying up worrying about things? Anxiety? Can't turn your mind off? There are exercises you can do to help you with that. I remember when I was studying Ray Kroc, founder of McDonald's, that was one of the key things that I came away with after reading the book, Grinding It Out, is he talked about the importance of getting good sleep. He said no matter what he had to deal with, problem-wise, whatever, he had to get good sleep so he could deal with it the next day. He said if he didn't, he really wouldn't be able to deal with, whatever those challenges were. So I've always taken that to heart. I've trained myself to be able to get very good sleep, and I look forward to sleeping. If I go to bed early, then it's kind of like, oh, I can stay up, in bed thinking about stuff maybe for half hour or 45 minutes or so. I just fall asleep, so it's kind of like, oh, okay, because I, like a lot of people, do like to, kind of think a little bit before I go to sleep. So I kind of use that to my advantage. But if I need to get good sleep, I got a lot to do, then I've trained myself how to just get into that slumber and just turn off your mind. You got to work at it, but you can do it. And like I said, it really helps your immune system. And with everything that's going on now, you need a very strong immune system. You need to be eating properly, getting proper rest, having a good attitude, not exposing yourself any more than you need to things. So, the immune system is designed to be exposed to things, but you don't have to, go overdo it. So these are things just to be thinking about when you're maintaining your own mind, your body, your spirit. Another thing is just making sure you've got survival type things. So a cook stove, like you would take camping, the fuel for it. A way to make like just a stick fire, with some firewood maybe in your backyard. So there's little foldable stoves you can get for that, and you can make things with sticks. It's amazing what you can cook on those. Because depending on where you are, like I said, with hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, if any of those things hit, you might find yourself without any power. And now, sure, you've got some food, you got no way to cook it. So it's good to be thinking of that. Even to have a bag that's like a survival bag that has a stove, some fuel, a little bit of food in there, some jugs of water, things if you had to, you could grab it and go like a go bag. But, kind of oriented towards cooking. Your utensils, can openers, the old military type, they're awesome. They always work. They're small, they're lightweight, you can get them really cheap. So it's thinking of these things. Multiple ways to light a fire, the lighter, you got a ferro rod. You got your flint and steel, things like that. Just being prepared so that you are ready for a multitude of different situations. You don't want to be stuck and you've got no way to light the fire. So, just things to think about. So anyway, it's kind of what I wanted to talk about on this first show. Just kind of because it's been on my mind lately. As things begin to intensify. And like I said, I still run into a lot of people that just aren't thinking this way. And sometimes I'll ask them, where do you think we're going to be come New Year's Day? There really seems to be no end in sight for this situation that we're all in. And as the food collapses, the food chains collapse, as we're starting to see, farmers, a lot of them aren't going to plant. The crops, there was nobody to pick them. And even now we're starting to see governmental agencies going in and doing COVID testing on the farm workers and then shutting the farms down. When it's time to harvest, it's time to harvest. You can't wait and come back in 2 or 3 weeks. So that further erodes our food chain supply. So what are you going to do? And people, I talk to people, wow, I went in and the frozen goods, there was things missing there. Wow, yeah, maybe you need to really think about that. Why do you think that is? It's not because there's just a run on things. We're talking about distribution now. And we're really starting to see that. I saw a thing recently about the CO2 shortage. Because the restaurants are closed, they're not making as much CO2 for the soda machines, but it's used in a lot of other areas for refrigeration, frozen goods, things like that. But now that they're not producing as much, that's a supply chain issue. So when you understand manufacturing and how manufacturing works, when you have certain runs that you'll do in a factory to do things, and if you don't need a need for it, then you change that out and you do other things with it, and then maybe you're not buying the supplies that you need to do those, which affects the other distributors down the line. So this is what people don't understand. When you shut systems down that were never meant to be shut down, they're meant to run 24/7. And I really think this winter we are going to see the harsh reality of what has been happening for 6 months. We've heard the stories about the chicken farmers killing tens of thousands of chickens because they sold to buyers that sold to restaurants. Well, no restaurants. Nobody's using the eggs. They have nowhere to sell those eggs. They can't just sell them to somebody that buys for grocery stores because they have all they need. So you've got these systems that have been set up over years through relationships with buyers and farmers and things of this nature. We're seeing the same thing in the cattle industry. When you have farmers that have beef that's ready to go to slaughter, but then the slaughterhouses are shut down now. And there again, maybe they sold to restaurants. That was their deal. So now you have beef that are getting bigger and bigger because, they're going to eat and they want to sell them at an optimal size. And now they're getting too big to even put on the machines. So now you have cattle. What are you going to do with them? And you're stuck in this supply chain that's set up to work a certain way. And you have a lot of head of cattle that you have to deal with. You weren't planning on this. You've been doing this for years. You get them ready, you sell them, off they go, you plan for the next batch. So here we are. And this has been like a car wreck on a very crowded freeway, where the first car hits and then bam, 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 all the other cars start running in all the way down the freeway. And that's what we're really starting to see. And as we go into winter, we're still seeing cars that are on that freeway whapping into the cars in front of them. And that's why I do predict that this is going to be a very harsh winter. So it's going to be really interesting to see what it looks like on New Year's Day. So anyway, just some thoughts and kind of things I've been thinking about. I would like to thank you for tuning in to Shop Talk, brought to you by Tucker Survival. If you'd like to find out more, just go to tuckersurvival.com. And there you will find links to our blogs, our other video channels that we got going, podcasts, other types of information. We're always putting stuff up there. So it's a real work in progress. As we're doing more and more, production's starting to get a little more involved. So check on back. Leave a comment if you like down below. Any suggestions on maybe some future things you'd like to have talked about here in the old shop. So like I said, sometimes we'll be talking shop, maybe cleaning guns, doing maintenance, things like that, working on lanterns, you name it. Or as in most shops, sometimes you just talk about stuff. So I look forward to doing more of these, maybe having some guests come in and see what's going on. So anyway, I want to thank you again. My name is Mark. Thank you so much for tuning in to Tucker Survival's Shop Talk. And you go out there and be safe, and we will see you again real soon. Shop Talk is brought to you by tuckersurvival.com and produced by MBJ Media Services.